last major project, I promise, for my harbor scene, especially for the railcar float, are these two special rail cars. These are called idler cars and are used to avoid having the locomotive on the apron and car float. They allow the loco to reach the cars on the float to pull them off and to push new cars on. Usually railroads use surplus equipment, so in my case they used a modified flat car and a gondola. Let's see how they were built. First off, the flat car. I weighed it with some pine car weights in the middle. These metal pine car weights are great because you can snap them into parts to make them fit. You'll see in a moment what I do to hide these weights. First off though, let's paint the deck a few shades of brown. Then, making a simple black acrylic wash, I gave the deck a few coats. And did the sides too while I was at it. And this is what is going to hide the weights, a 3D printed shed. With a separate roof. I did have some issues with the overhang of the roof as it comes to a sharp edge and the resin was too brittle to hold the shape, but easy to fix later, so keep watching. It almost fit. Was a bit tight in some spots. So I sanded down some dry glue from when I glued the weights on, and also off camera I thinned out the inside of the walls of the shed a bit. I then cut out some frosted plastic sheet and glued that to the inside of the windows to block the view of the weights. Then I glued on the roof, and held it in place with my handy Japanese clothespins. These are great for this type of clamping. I have a set on my workbench, but also in my wood shop. While that dried, I did some more touch-up painting. I filed down the ragged edges of the roof, and then I got out my thinnest Tamiya masking tape and made a rolled roof. After I trimmed off the excess tape, I painted it black. And then the shed was glued in place, again with a clamp holding it. While that was drying, I painted the trucks of the flat car with a brown wash. I also painted the wheel faces. And also gave the underside of the flat car a quick coat of wash, even though it won't be visible. And then with my trusty pointed toothpick, I made sure the bearing surfaces in the trucks were cleaned of any wash that got in there. After reattaching the trucks and couplers, I gave it a quick check on my portable test track with the vintage KD coupler gauge. KD, by the way, spun off its N-scale coupler business and now is called Microtrains. Another feature that I saw in prototype photos are some railings to keep workers from accidentally stepping off the flat car. I cut some thin, square styrene strip to length and then I glued them into the existing stake pocket holes in the deck. I didn't get them all exactly at the same depth in the stake pockets, so I trimmed off the tallest ones. And then I used some more of that thread from my wife's sewing box and glued it to the top of the stanchions. It was fiddly work, to say the least. Then I painted the stanchions and thread brown. I also painted up an oil drum and pallet. These are to hide the holes in the deck of the flat car that used to hold 2 road trailers. I glued those in place, but unfortunately my glue bottle decided to mess up my camera's focus. A bit more weathering on the sides with some pan pastels. And she's done. Now onto the gondola. I wanted to inflict some damage on the top edges of the sides since this gondola saw heavy use prior to it being converted to an idler car. I sanded down some rough edges on the dents and then painted the inside and the top of the sides with a brick red paint. I used the brown wash on the trucks and lower body and underside. Again, I used pan pastels to impart that rusty look of a well-used gondola. In order to weigh the gondola enough, I again used the pine car weights. This time they would be visible, so they needed some work. I first filed them down to try and get the sides flat. I painted them to look like concrete blocks, which I saw in some prototype photos of gondolas used as idler cars. I then glued them in place as haphazardly as possible, like on the prototype. I added a few broken pieces of very thin strip wood, and after putting a few dabs of glue in the corners and elsewhere, I sprinkled some dirt into the gondola. Again, I hit the inside with more pan pastels. Then I made a mistake and used some black wash. Unfortunately, that caused the concrete colored paint to peel off, so later I had to brush on some more. I should have just stuck to the pan pastels, or primed the metal weights properly before painting them. And then some more pan pastels on the outside, especially around the trucks, couplers, and lower body. And they're both done. Here are some glamour shots. They both turned out well. And here's a short look at loading some cars onto the float. I'll be doing a full operating session at some point soon once I fix a few track issues in my yard lead. I hope you enjoyed these two builds. If you ever have any questions, leave a comment below. And thanks for watching. I hope you were able to catch this whole series. Check out the playlist link in the description for all the videos.